Etsy is cracking down on 3D printed products. Etsy has introduced new, which I kind of like because I think being able to sell 3D printed products is cool, but I'd like some distinction personally. Etsy has introduced new rules, changes stating, that anything made by a seller using computerized tools, really any, including CNC, wow, such as laser printers, 3D printers, CNC, or Cricut. Is it Cricut or Cricut? Cricut?
Cricut.
Or Cricut machines must be produced based on the seller's original design. Okay. Originally an online bazaar of handmade crafts and vintage clothing, Etsy became flooded with mass-produced trinkets sold by dropshippers, resellers, and large 3D print farms. All 3DP notes that if your Etsy business model is solely based on 3D printing licensed digital models and you're not interested in adding custom features to your products, now is the time to transition from Etsy to another platform.
So this is pretty interesting. Well, hold on a second.
I think it's good.
Hold on a second. Right. I think that it's cool that Etsy has defined an identity for themselves.
Yeah.
And is taking steps to enforce it.
That's why I think it's cool.
However, this is one of those decisions that I kind of am looking at going, what will be the unintended consequences? Let's say that I'm someone who is super into creating cool designs and I license them to a lot of people, which is making money for me and allowing me to continue to create more designs, maybe even do it as a full-time job. Are we cutting off that lifeline if that particular person is not interested in running a 3D printing farm and dealing with the logistics of shipping out hundreds of little bird-shaped water feeders or whatever?
I understand the argument. I don't agree with it.
I'm not making an argument. I'm just asking a question.
No, and I'm not saying it's necessarily your argument or anything, but to pose it as an argument regardless, I don't agree with it because of what Etsy is. And this doesn't cut off the lifeline for those people on every website. It just cuts off that path through Etsy, which I think should happen.
What's the alternative? Where should I buy that? Because that's where, honestly, so down to Etsy's, Etsy wants their identity to be bespoke, handcrafted.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you that I don't see Etsy that way. And their identity is partially...
they should be able to defend the way that they want their identity to be.
It's partially what they want it to be, but it's also partially what it just is.
I agree, but if what it is not what they want it to be,
sure,
they should be able to take actions to defend what they want it to be.
And they're able to, and I'm not saying anything about their right to do that. The only question I'm asking is what happens now?
Oh,
because some
people are going to get bumped off.
I'm talking about the original designers. I'm not even talking about the 3D print farms. So about those people, if I, the end user, was like, I want a 3D printed some random thing, I would think to go to Etsy. I confess to you, I would have no idea where else to go for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't, but I understand.
Where would you go?
A 3D printing website?
But
there's many of them where you can see a design and you can just order it and it just gets printed for you and then delivered.
But what if the thing about Etsy is it's not all 3D printed?
Yeah.
There's also laser engraving, and there's for Etsy, the only thing I've ever really thought to buy on Etsy is gifty stuff. And I don't necessarily just want to see 3D printed stuff. So what's that? What's an alternative marketplace?
No, there's still going to be 3D. They're not banning 3D printed stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
But
Etsy is supposed to be creators.
Sure.
So they should defend that. I think this completely makes sense. It's not banning it off of the internet.
I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. Hold on. I'm asking, if the creator of the design does not want to run a 3D printing shop.
Sure.
Is Etsy creating a path by which that creator, through one licensed third party or something, could have it for sale on Etsy?
I don't think they need to.
But why not?
Because their thing is about connecting. Mm-hmm. For Christmas, I bought these little wooden birds for Emma. And they were through Etsy. And when I did the transaction, it put me in contact with that person. And we talked about it and any customizations that might be wanted and all this other kind of stuff. It's supposed to be a from my understanding, and I don't
Yeah.
know, I'm not Etsy, I could be wrong, but from my understanding, it's supposed to be a way to get consumers in contact with creators that are making things.
Bespoke things.
Yeah. And
Sure.
if this is not doing that because it's a pass-through, then that is not how they want their website to really work.
And that's fine. Where do I go to find that now?
There's other websites on the internet.
No, I know there's other websites on the internet. So, okay, but we keep...
Let me see if I can find some.
We keep dodging my question. My question...
I don't think so.
My question is... Maybe Dan understands my question. My question is, Mr. Dan, I am the creator of something. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is an engraving template, or maybe it is a 3D printed thing, or maybe it is some kind of STL for some kind of CNC something. It's something. I do not wish to sell it directly and deal with the logistics. And Oakenhedge in Floatplane Chat says, creators who don't want to bother with the logistics will probably just hire out to a management firm, which will do all that for them and manage their account and stuff. That is very optimistic, but probably not.
If they didn't want to do it in the first place, they probably don't want to do that.
So if they so right now, the reseller of licensed designs network that, as far as I can tell, largely uses Etsy to sell these creations. If their source of income is those people, all I'm asking is, what will happen to them? Where does that customer go to find that? What's the Etsy alternative?
There's sites online where you can sell your 3D printing files.
Yes, but I'm not only talking about 3D printing.
I think the consumer in this case that Linus is talking about wants the 3D printed object finalized.
Or not 3D printed.
Just the file.
Or engraved.
Or
some
they want the
thing.
physical object.
They want the physical object.
And the store themselves is just getting stuff off Thingiverse and then making the physical object and then selling that. One thing that I've been trying to figure out just kind of in the comments, I produce 3D print designs. I have no interest in selling physical goods, but I take commissions. I sell them on a store or something like that. If I'm a 3D print farm, this design looks really cool. I'm going to buy I can sell this license of your 3D model, and then I'm going to sell it on my Etsy store. Yeah. Is that allowed by Etsy? If the store were to go to that person directly and commission an STL for them, could they sell that on their store?
That I don't know.
If they had a team or an employee, would that also count?
I think yes.
Yeah. So is commissioning not a bad idea? So what is wrong with licensing then? Would the commissioner give a license for only that store?
Because you could sell that stuff on Shopify. You could sell that stuff on Amazon. You could sell that stuff anywhere.
But I think the thing that's getting in the middle here is that they're just producing physical goods that don't require craftsmanship or that much craftsmanship. I shouldn't be too disparaging. But the file is like the problem?
It's the owner of the file. That's where Etsy's drawing the line. They're saying that the only person who can sell a good created with a file is the creator of the file.
I think it's more creator than owner.
Yes, it's the creator of the file because licensing is not allowed. And to be clear, I fully understand what they're trying to achieve here. Mm-hmm. They're trying to take the site from what it is now, which is essentially like a dumping ground of reproduced digital hoo-ha that's sold by a whole bunch of licensees of, in many cases, a lot of duplicate files.
Just grabbing free stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
So I want to make it abundantly clear that I fully understand the issue. That is not the problem. And I fully recognize Etsy's right to maintain their own identity for what they are. My question is, the people who are making their living licensing these files that they have created, which may not be 3D printed, they may be something else. Mm-hmm. For me, as a pretty normie in terms of shopping online, I actually don't do a ton of shopping online. I can't I don't know like what the place I would go to just like find kitschy sort of, in this case, I guess, licensed, stuff would be. Like what Etsy wants its identity to be, what they want their identity to be, that's well within their rights. But as a consumer, that isn't the identity that Etsy has managed to maintain over the last 5+ years. So now that they have morphed into that, they have become a central part of the business model of the creators of these designs that is now gone. So where is the what is the replacement?
Yeah. So
honestly,
you're talking about the creators. Their business model is selling to Etsy shops.
I personally think you're overblowing how much that happens, and in the inverse, how much it's just people taking models or buying them for like $20 from stores that already exist, which aren't going anywhere. So that model is not going to change.
I don't want us to be too laser focused on 3D models. Like literally every post in chat is telling me, but Thingiverse. Well, hold on a second.
If you're talking about things like drop shipping, then they still have engraving, the exact same options leatherwork, that they had in the past.
Pins, it can all just be mass produced out of a file, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of creators too who produce this stuff and sell the files. Selling the files is a lot easier.
It could be. Yeah. What's that? What's that type of like stitching where you embroidery?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could do embroidery patterns, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Which is great. So where's the hub for it?
Exactly.
This stuff is currently available now on Amazon.
All of it? Like,
there are drop shipped things.
Sure.
There are embroidered things. There are 3D printed things.
I mean, I don't particularly want to buy on Amazon.
Okay. I don't think that's a valid answer to the statement.
And I don't actually necessarily think that the shopping experience on Amazon is
so bad
very similar to the shopping experience on Etsy.
Sure.
Like I did not mean for this to be a particularly contentious topic. I was just asking.
It's just a really complicated, nuanced topic because there's a lot of different creators involved in something like a print farm. Some of them are being stolen from. Some of them don't care because it's like, okay, I want a 3D printed Benchy, which is now available. I can go get the file, but I don't own a 3D printer. I want one. Or, I would like the Disney logo cross-stitched into a t-shirt or printed onto a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Somebody's maybe selling that pre-done. There's like a bunch of different avenues. Some creators will embroider your stuff, but that's like you're going to a business service. It's very confusing, and I don't know how they're going to try and crack down on it more than just like a vibes thing.
I think it's largely going to be a vibes thing.
I think it's going to be a vibes thing. 3D printing is probably a little bit easier than the other stuff.
I don't know. I think the theft angle that Luke brought up is probably a really critical element, not only in the way that you brought it up, but also from like an IP standpoint. This could be Etsy just trying to cover their butts. Dan bringing up the Disney logo thing.
I've had some friends get banned from Etsy for making very similar things because people want like good thing for the thing they like.
Sometimes you can't get a lot of those, branded things are trash.
A lot of the stuff that my friends make on Etsy is like better than the quality that you can get that is first party.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
But that's not really allowed, but you kind of have to know that it's your kind of special little guy interest thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess.
So what is the special sauce that you're describing with Etsy? What's the shopping experience that is?
I don't know. It's just full of like kitschy, kind of crafted looking stuff. That's its identity to me. It's kind of like remember ThinkGeek? ThinkGeek conceivably could have sold anything, and Amazon probably had everything that ThinkGeek had. Not everything. Some things were ThinkGeek exclusive. They made their own items, but ThinkGeek had an identity. Its identity was if I had a gamer geek person in my life and it was their birthday and I had absolutely no idea what to buy them, and for some reason they were an adult who still wanted birthday presents, I could go to ThinkGeek and I could probably find like a cool map of Middle Earth or something that they would think is cool, and I could buy that. And you can go there for inspiration. I guess, is part of what, the identity of a store is to me, is I have something in my back of my mind that I kind of need something like that to serve purpose X, and that's the store that I would think to go to. Obviously, I could go to eBay. You could buy anything on eBay.
Yeah.
Like it's not that I can't solve this problem. It's just that, I think
Luke supports the mod creators on Nexus. The Etsy is very, very similar to that sort of mindset.
Yeah.
I can go to eBay and I can get, 3D printed services or plates. I'm not going to Etsy to buy from a store. I'm there to buy from a creator and a small team.
Right.
I honestly think we're talking
an individual.
about an incredibly, we're talking about where do they go for an incredibly small percentage of the platform. I think
the problem is that it's a
people,
small percentage, but it's the same type of thing, and it's getting bigger and bigger because when somebody goes, cute Bulbasaur plant holder, it's Etsy, buy the Bulbasaur plant holder.
So
I don't think that's
I guess
point.
No. I understand what you're saying, Luke. You're saying that the people who are relying on licensing their designs to people who are using a marketplace like Etsy to sell them in volume are very few and far between.
And I think a lot of those people are being robbed.
And you know what? I'll be the first to admit that I don't know much about the economics of these engagements, other than that I do know that people do survive by creating designs, licensing them to whether it's engraving or 3D printing or leatherworking farms, and then using marketplaces like Etsy to do numbers.
So I'll show you. I'm going to try to find it.
By the way, this is really sad. ThinkGeek apparently was bought out by private equity. So, throwing back to what we were talking about before. ThinkGeek was so cool.
I don't know. Do you have a particular site that you like for buying? I don't know if you ever have, but buying 3D printing files. I suspect you probably just make your own. But
I mean, not necessarily. It's really kind of dependent on what's needed. There's some very specialized things that you might want. But most of them are available for free.
A lot of them are free. And a lot of these people are printing and then selling. A big part of my problem, I think, is that a huge amount of Etsy is people downloading free 3D models that a lot of the time come with a thing saying you can't sell this.
Yep. Most of it's open source licenses.
Printing 1,000 of them and selling them on Etsy. That's the vast majority of what's happening.
Do we know that?
Not all of it.
Do you know that for sure?
I've read articles about it before where Etsy's concerned about this
I think
problem.
that's kind of what they're trying to maybe crack down
And that's
on.
what they're trying to stop.
Sure.
Now, Linus's scenario, I am certain, is also real. I think it's just a really small percentage.
How do we enable that scenario? How do we get more money into the hands of the creator without necessarily telling the creator, putting a gun to their head and being like, you need to start running your own 3D printing farm and putting little trinkets in packages and putting labels on them?
That's not what you want to do because you like creating things.
This kind of comes back into
That's what I'm asking.
starving artist.
What store do I go to where I can find the Etsiness?
It's interesting because it's such a similar question to the Nexus Mods idea.
Sure.
And with Nexus Mods, the way that they've done it is they've tried to add kind of platform features under a subscription, and they've used part of the subscription to benefit the creators of the mods, which are the only reason why one is on the platform, if you know what I mean. So they're kind of reciprocating a little bit. Okay, the mod creators are putting their mods up for free, and the only reason why you're on my website is because the mod creators did that. I'm going to charge a subscription, but obviously the only reason you're here are for these mods, really. So I'm going to lock some platform features that make it nicer to use my platform, but I'm going to give some kickbacks to the mod creators. So is there a solution does printables, for example?
This is the problem.
Kickbacks, or is there a subscription model? Is there anything going on?
If it's like artist versus, I guess, the printing company at this point. If you want to think about it in terms of art prints and painters, the people who are designing the 3D models are kind of the painter, and then they're like, here's my painting. Do you want to buy one? I don't really want to deal with shipping things. And then somebody just buys a license to it and then starts printing it. And the only way that the consumers is going to get it, because Thingiverse and printables and those sorts of things are kind of like Nexus Mods right now anyway.
Yeah, like I found this. I have no idea, but I found this creator on Printables, and there's an option to support and join club, and then you can join like a thingy,
That's
which
cool.
gives them some form of kickback.
There's loads of these types of.
So I guess you can probably set up your own tiers.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
There's
based
loads
on
of
the
these
naming.
types of websites, and especially for models.
There's tons, yeah.
For games as well, it's really important. A lot of people will buy assets, and a lot of people will make assets. Something like a 3D printed kind of desk toy, or
Definitely
amusement. They're normally simpler, and even there's super complicated ones.
But like all this architecture isn't going away, is I think what my point was.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
I just think that this is an effort to reduce slop in a way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So check this out. So again, on Printables, there are a lot of these other websites. This is just the one that I'm poking around on. You can see these purple things.
Yep.
Pink things, whatever. I highlight over it, saw exclusive model. So you have to be part of this person's club to download it.
Yep.
And then that's a subscription.
And
There are
some
also
people
ways
sell
you can,
individuals.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are also ways you can sell individual models. So this is
Sure.
this is the market that these places have had in the past.
Okay. So then, do you think it will have any impact on the number of people that will subscribe to Buddy there if there are fewer resellers?
Fewer places for them to sell.
Yeah.
I think there are other.
Does he have a license if somebody wants to reproduce it?
I don't know.
We're just talking in theory.
No,
right
yeah,
now.
I'm talking in
I'm
theory.
also talking in theory.
By reducing the sales avenues for these designs, will there be an impact, was my original question. And I don't know the answer to that. And I do agree that the slop on Etsy is an absolute problem. And I do think that it's a great point that tamping down on theft is 100% necessary. But like, I'm just trying to figure out.
I just really think, I am sure there will be an impact on some people doing this legitimately. I really think the amount of effectively pirated, non-condoned slop on Etsy
should go way down.
Well, no, I think it was the vast majority of all of this type of arrangement. I really think the percentage of this that is fitting under the category that you're talking about is like incredibly small. And I think the reason for that is whenever you see the prices to buy the files for these things, it's cheap.
Do you think that part of the problem that I'm experiencing, where I have this perception of Etsy, is that
Which is
Etsy
a legitimate perception of Etsy.
is that Etsy took too long to take action?
Absolutely, dude. Yeah. They should have done this, like you said, 5 years ago or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Because this has been true
years.
on Etsy for a long time.
So okay, I think we've done it then. I think we've come to what was kind of the core of what I was trying to explain, where they have their idea of what their identity is. But for better or for worse, through their actions, their identity has become something that has created a marketplace for someone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so what's the replacement? What is going to fill that vacuum now?
Yeah, because like you said,
eBay, maybe.
Yeah,
eBay-
I think the
eBay
traditional
fits.
stores that I listed, but like you said, you don't want a store that's like 3dprintedjunk.com.
No.
You want a store that is things that you're interested in.com that might also have 3D printed things.
I mean, what if I did want a store that is, again, I want to make it really clear. I'm not just talking about 3D printing, right? So what if I did want a store that was 3D printed or laser engraved or etched or
Custom t-shirt.
or CNC'd or screen printed junk.com? What is it? Which store is that?
Temu.
Temu, you think so? Is there much 3D printed
I
crap
have no
on
idea.
Temu? I don't
was
think
just
so.
Tossing them under a little bit.
I don't think so.
You can, like, speaking of sites where they could go sell this stuff, you can third party sell on Temu, for example.
Fiverr, someone said? I don't think so.
I don't think Fiverr.
You can't browse on Fiverr. That's the thing. Like, I almost wonder if Etsy should still have a marketplace for this, but like call it something else or something. Like, do you kind of get what I'm talking about? Like, it feels like there's a bit of a, because obviously nobody would be listing this stuff on Etsy if nobody was buying it. So it's clear that there is a marketplace that exists, and
I think they should pivot to being like a second site for maybe micro services or something like that, because the people on Etsy are maker type people. And I think what they're trying to target here is just like, I own 15 3D printers and just make things, or I own a laser cutter and make things that are random. But you segment that into a different website, which is just kind of like makering services type things, and they can advertise all the random models like Linus wants.
If you take those out, though, if you split the service,
Yeah.
you're going to kill the whole vibe that Linus likes.
Maybe not. Maybe not, because honestly, I miss the days of going on Etsy and being like, oh, wow, that's a like totally custom bespoke thing that someone created.
Me too.
So, okay, why don't I give some context? The last time I was like browsing on Etsy, I found it was a 3D printed thing that I wanted to buy, and it was like a topographical Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past world map, and it made me think about a lot of things. I wondered, who had actually made that design, whether they were properly compensated. I wondered what the printing quality would be like, because it was clearly 3D printed rather than injection molded. I wondered what the licensing and trademark issues were around Nintendo's obvious ownership of that intellectual property. And I didn't end up turning that into a WAN show conversation until this kind of sparked it. And so, random pirated, thing.com, right? What is the replacement for Etsy and shopping? For like cool, topographical wall maps, and the way that Etsy sort of led me down a rabbit hole where I could find all these kind of cool different designs. I don't know. I didn't end up buying one, but it was, kind of a cool shopping experience.
It might not exist in exactly that way anywhere else.
I know exactly what you mean, though.
And like Dan said, a lot of the times, unfortunately, that's going to end up being higher quality than the real first-party stuff that you can buy. Not always. Sometimes it's just
not
junk.
always.
Probably most of the times.
All makers are not created equal.
Yeah.
So and some of them are just 3D printing farms.
But some of them just make little dumb trinkets that Linus likes, and where are you going to go?
Yeah. So I don't know. That's the conversation that I wanted to have. There's some people who have
a while.
There's some people who have kind of tried to give some suggestions. Someone said Tindy, but like they're really focused on like hardware.
But that's kind of Etsy's brand now, isn't it?
This is interesting. Etsy Hub is apparently for sale for just $2,500. Like honestly, that would kind of solve my problem. If Etsy Hub was just kind of like the dumping ground, and then
a little
Etsy
bit less policed,
and then Etsy was just like the actual bespoke. Because another thing that I think is going to happen to Etsy as a result of this, that maybe is a good thing, but could impact the shopping experience that Etsy's users expect, is that I suspect prices will go up a lot.
I have
an
idea. What if you had verified type sellers? So somebody who was like a maker got a little check mark.
How do you verify, man?
Yeah.
I like this concept that they're going down. I think it's impossible. Yeah. I've been thinking for a while that I had this conversation with potentially both of you. My idea for an AI app, because of course, Tech Bro has an idea for an AI app. Everyone's stunned. Have I given you this pitch?
I don't think so.
I'll give it on the WAN show because I don't think I'm going to have time to do it, and I just hope that someone does. The name that I thought of was you could shorten it to Lil Bro, or it's Little Bro.
Little Bro.
Or Little Guy.
Little Guy.
Little Guy.
Just my little guy.
It's specifically Little Guy, not Lil Bro. Little Guy.
Okay.
That's the name. And the tagline is...
It's a microphone and speaker that lives in your pants.
Oh.
And you can talk to it anytime you want.
Oh.
Not micro guy.
So you can talk to your little guy.
No!
Get out.
No!
I could have been talking about me. Please don't fire me.
Oh, man.
Yikes.
Okay. Let's get back.
This is why I'm not allowed to talk on the show.
So silence. We need a mute Dan button.
You have one.
We have one. It's in the bottom left.
Oh, get wrecked. Okay, so the name is Little Guy.
Little Guy.
The tagline is the anti-AI AI.
See, it's good.
And so you when you're using it, it's like, the system prompt or the base prompt or whatever will have it recheck kind of everything it wants to suggest. And it's mostly based on the suggestions. So if you ask where you can buy a certain thing...
Is it mostly based or fully based?
Hopefully it's fully based. But it would try to find like small mom and pop brick and mortar options instead of major chains. And if you're doing research through it or something, it will try to detect if the text or the video or whatever resource that it's reading from or showing to you or whatever is AI written.
Oh, interesting.
It won't suggest it. So it tries to keep it focused on things that are real.
Real, but small.
And
like our little guy.
Yeah. It focuses on the little guy. It tries to help the little guy.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of sick.
I don't know how much money there is in it. That's the problem.
Probably nothing.
All the ideas that like are based and cool are not that profitable, it feels like.
Yeah, if someone wants to steal that idea, please go for it. Let me know that you did it.
Yeah, do it. Or don't.
We can sell it on Etsy.
Yeah, but like it's something that I see people going towards is like verified made by people stuff.
Right.
And I think I have a theory that we're going to see a rise of like a very like non-social tier of almost content creators, which is like people really just sharing evidence that they actually made this thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, do you get a video file along with your product
that shows them making it?
Yeah, and you notice that one slight scratch on the corner, and you can see you can see the timestamp in the video where that tiny accidental scratch happened, and now it's on your product, and you know that it's real.
Not that having more or less fingers is a problem, as long as it's not AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. So like, I think I have a theory that things are going to kind of maybe not that exact form, but I think real, actually, I know this was made by a person, things are going to start going up in value for people.
I do think so.
And I think there's a space, and that's why I'm happy that this is happening with Etsy. And I think there's a space for little guy to be a thing if someone wants to make it. If nobody makes it, maybe I'll do it someday, but not right now.